Report Story. Chapter 5. It was Sunday, and Izuku was at the beach. The very same place he and Ochako stargazed together, though this part of it was much dirtier. Izuku wondered what was in store for him as he slowly walked toward the towering figure that awaited him. He could still hardly believe All Might himself was going to be training him. It would him. It would be difficult, perhaps the most difficult thing he'd ever done, but this was what he wanted. To be a hero. This was it. Of course, he'd have still tried his hardest regardless of having a mentor, but Izuku was no fool. This was one of the greatest opportunities he'd ever gotten. And not only that, but he was going to be able to share it all with Ochako. Mostly. The titanic figure waved to him, and Izuku began jogging toward him. His feet sunk in the sand with each step, but eventually, he found himself face to face with All Might. Greetings. My protege has come at last. And not a moment too late. All Might bellowed with laughter. Now, young Midoriya, are you ready to take the first step on your path towards becoming a hero? Izuku nodded immediately, but then a thought occurred to him. He pulled a piece of paper out of his pocket and handed it to All Might, who accepted it curiously. My mom wanted me to give you her N number just in case, if that's okay. All Might laughed. Of course. That's reasonable. I'll be sure to send her a message so she has my number if she ever needs to reach me or has any questions. Now, are you ready, young Midoriya? He nodded quickly yet again. What followed was a series of grueling realizations. He'd have to change his diet, he'd have to run in the mornings before school, and he was responsible for cleaning up this garbage heap on the beach. Though, what struck Izuku the most was the lie All Might instructed him to tell Ochako regarding the situation. As he walked back holding the plan for success in his hands, the conversation he had with All Might regarding this lie kept replaying in his head. Remember, I'm just Toshinori Yagi, an ex-pro hero who decided to train you after seeing what you did for a fellow student during the sludge villain incident. I also believe you possess a hidden potential, which will later explain one for all. The goal of this training is that we're preparing you to harness that hidden power, which is entirely correct if you think about it. He paused, allowing his eventual successor to absorb the information. Seeing Izuku nod, he continued, Ochako will be primarily focusing on training her quirk, which is no easy task, mind you. I guarantee she won't have it any easier than you if she keeps up with this the same way you do. I've also prepared for her a personalized plan for success as well. Izuku grimaced at that. Ochako's jaw was going to drop for sure. She will no doubt be able to expect great results if she follows such training much in the same way you do. The only thing though, is that I hope she's up for the challenge. Izuku's stomach twisted knowing he'd have to lie to Ochako. Though, if she understood the stakes, he figured she'd probably forgive him. But still, tomorrow would certainly be interesting, if nothing else. Izuku woke up to the piercing sound of his alarm. Usually, waking up wasn't this painful, but as he looked at his phone he realized he was awake a whole hour earlier than normal. He sighed. This certainly wasn't going to be easy. Though, no one said being a hero was supposed to be easy in the first place. As he tied his shoes he wondered if he should ask Ochako to run with him in the mornings. He conceded that he would figure all that out after Ochako got to meet Mr. Yagi. He also wondered what she'd think of her own plan for success, as All Might called it. Promoted stories. You'll also like The Hero Who Sings with a Smile 39.6K 368 high. Guys, this is my first story I write on Wattpad. I hope you like it. Fluke a day 112K 8.2 kilo amperes. Collection of short Fluke for 365 days. Please check the second book for the rest of the day's update. Zero Deku Onishots 31.6K 798 because of circumstances, this book won't be continued unfortunately. Feel free to check out my other stuff. Thank you for understanding. Free. Onishots 150K3K. This is a collections of free X-readers. Requests on this are now closed. I am, sequel of, UR check mark 69.5K 1.8K. This book is the sequel of, You Are So Better. Read that first before going here. Tears of Joy. Tears of Joy. Thank you to that one reader that suggested this title. I can't see you sad face, but thank you. The Heroes Return MHAXJJK, ongoing 115K 1.7K in quad, Izuku. Midoriya, after being betrayed and killed, vanishes leaving hurt people behind. After 2 months in a hack, he come back. Changed. How will the class re? Hurt cuz I love you to death. Izuocha. Huh. 0.8.9K 141. Class 1A is now Class 2A and is working to be better heroes due to events that had happened before. Deku has gotten strong feelings toward Uraraka during the summer as he took a deep breath at his front door, absorbing the morning air. Crisp. The temperature was warm, too. It was a good day for a run. He took his earbuds and phone out, putting on a playlist Ochako had sent him the other night with a bunch of songs she thought he'd like. He never really listened to much music, he realized, before he met Ochako. That was one of the things they'd text about all of the time. Ochako would send song after song to him, with Izuku giving out his opinions, occasionally with much guilt if it was a song he didn't like. Though he found he was becoming quite a fan of a couple artists, even listening to some songs on repeat when he was studying at home. Just another thing about her he found himself adoring. He navigated the playlist, putting on his new favorite song, one Ochako showed him, as the first to play. He smiled, closing his eyes for a moment as it began. Izuku smiled fondly, reciting the lyrics as he began his morning jog. A routine he'd become well accustomed to. Near the end of it, his lungs burned and his legs ached. He turned a corner, seeing his home up ahead. It was nearly over. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, he repeated in his head over and over, willing himself to continue onward. As he touched down at the steps to his house, the hero to be collapsed. His breath came out in wheezes, the run taxing him more than he wanted to admit. The plan for success was set up in such a way that ensured his running would only get more intense as time went on. The next time he did this run, he was expected to complete it 15 to complete it 15 seconds faster than the time before, up until a certain point. Grueling indeed. Izuku pulled his phone out, checking the time. He still had time for breakfast. Walking inside to make the protein-rich pancakes with eggs, he grimaced as he remembered showing his mother his new meal plan. She was appalled, so much food and protein. His incessant pleading ended up winning his mother over though, and thus, the fridge and pantry were well stocked. As he ate his breakfast, he briefly wondered how Ochako would react to the diet. Then, a thought struck him. Would Ochako be able to afford the diet with her family's financial situation? He shook his head, unpleasant to think about. He'd worry about that later, as he was about to start making assumptions that could be wrong. After all, his phone vibrated as he was cleaning up in the kitchen, a text from Ochako. He opened the message, unable to contain his smile. Good morning, Izu. Should I bring anything special to our training session besides RPE gear? A good question, Izuku thought. Morning. I think your PE gear should be enough. You'll also be getting his little plan for success paper that will explain everything like I did too though lol. Okie tilde I'll see you outside then. He smiled again. Several minutes later, Izuku found Ochako waiting outside her door. He waved at her, getting her attention. She ambled her way toward him and interlaced their hands. Hi, Izu. Ready for our training after school? Izuku blushed. He wasn't sure he'd ever get used to someone else holding his hand like this. Why yeah, just nervous I guess. Ochako laughed quietly. They made more small talk as they walked to school, with Izuku explaining his plan for success. Ochako didn't hide her gasps and surprised eyes at how detailed this all was. And I'm getting one too, she asked incredulously. He giggled, nodding. Oh god, well, that sounds like a ton of work but I'm all for it. She pumped her fist out. Being a hero will be difficult, but I'm sure we can do this. Izuku smiled. In time, they arrived at school, and things went as they would typically go, with the exception that he felt Katsuki's eyes on him a lot more than usual. To his relief though, no one bothered him in any of his classes, and he and Ochako shared a pleasant lunch. Eventually though, school was over. Izuku was silently waiting by an exit where he routinely met up with Ochako at. He glanced at his phone, noticing the time. Ochako was running late compared to when she'd usually show up. He shook his head. She was probably just handling some last-minute issue in her class or something. He'd just continue waiting. Another minute passed, and someone turned the corner. He tilted his head over to look, and to his surprise, it wasn't Ochako. It was Katsuki. Katsuki Bakugo was walking straight towards him. Their gazes met. Izuku's eyes widened. Katsuki's focused. Before Izuku could think of what to do, Katsuki was right in front of him. His eyes instinctively found the ground between them as his legs quivered. A familiar sense of foreboding enveloped Izuku. He took a big gulp, trying to quell his nerves, to no avail. KK Kat Katsuki, he barely managed to mumble. Katsuki sighed. God, you're so fucking pathetic. Izuku flinched, closing his eyes in preparation for the inevitable. Flashbacks of when he'd been assaulted played in his mind, scene after vivid scene. His body tensed, Katsuki's fist would connect to his stomach, just as it always had. Katsuki sneered at Deku's wobbling legs, shaking arms, and his pointed down eyes. How could this pathetic excuse of a human even hope to be a hero? He just didn't get it. His was not the demeanor of a hero. He was trying his damnedest to comprehend this enigma. Word had gotten around that Deku was still determined to take the UA entrance exam, and Katsuki couldn't understand it. What possessed this fucking nerd? Katsuki placed a gentle hand on Deku's right shoulder as he took a deep breath. Look, if you think you have the slightest chance in hell of getting into UA, then think again, you little dweeb. He tightened his grip on the boy's shoulder. Stop. Now, he scowled. Katsuki moved his head to Deku's other shoulder. You'll never be a hero, you're too weak, he slowly enunciated. Hearing Deku's whimpering, he pulled away. He grinned as Deku fell to his knees, quivering and clutching himself. Perhaps he finally got his point across. One less obstacle in his conquest. There was no comparison. He had seen enough. He was satisfied. Ochako sighed, having finished her test. She was late to meet Izuku, a shame. Cleaning her desk and packing her backpack, she left the classroom in a hurry. She turned a corner, eager to see Izuku. To her horror, Izuku had collapsed into a ball, clutching his arms to his legs. Ochako rushed to his side, wrapping her arms around him. Shish, it's okay, I'm here, she repeated for him. He embraced her back tightly. Good. That was progress for whenever he acted like this. Izu, please tell me, what happened, she whispered to him, slowly rocking him back and forth. She was starting to better understand this reaction Izuku would have. As sad as it was very consistent, and she had a good guess as to what happened. Nonetheless, she needed to confirm it. Katsuki, he mumbled out again, shaking his head. Ochako's expression hardened, but she remained tender for Izuku's sake. Did he hurt you? Silence. The silence stretched on for several long moments, and just as she was about to ask again, he responded, and no. Relief flooded her at hearing that. She could worry about what to do with Katsuki later, but Izuku still needed her attention. After another minute, Izuku had calmed down enough and was simply laying in Ochako's arms at this point, sniffling occasionally. She was thankful that the school was essentially empty now, with no one to see their little scene. She sighed. Izuku had PTSD, and these little scenes of his were him having an episode. Her hatred and animosity of Katsuki grew, as causing someone to react this extremely must have meant there was some horrible abuse in the past. She resolved that Katsuki was someday going to get what he deserved, but for now, Izuku came first. After a few moments, Ochako helped pull Izuku to his feet. Are you okay, Izu? Why, yes. Can I ask what happened? She wondered if it was too soon, and that it may trigger him again, but she just had to know. I. He paused as he frowned. You don't have to, we can talk about it later if you want. Ochako watched Izuku as he processed what was going through his head. Her gut clenched uncomfortably, with Izuku in as much pain as he seemed. She wondered how long Izuku was alone by himself, and more anger rose up within her. Something had to be done about that villain. She slowly stroked Izuku's back, contemplating as she did so what did Katsuki do exactly? How long was Izuku alone like this? Her hand stroking his back subconsciously tightened in anger. It's okay, he gulped. He just came up to me, said I'll never, and never be. Quote dot. He shook his head, clutching Ochako even more tightly. Ochako had to take a deep breath, focusing on staying calm for the boy in her arms. He's wrong, by the way, she gently spoke, holding him close. I know you'll be the greatest hero ever. Izuku choked up once again, clutching Ochako needily. Called me weak A and said I'll and never get I into UA. Ochako absorbed the information readily. So Katsuki didn't actually attack him, then. While she was glad, she was also confused. Whatever, at least Izuku was safe. I see. I'm glad you're not hurt, and you're definitely not pathetic. By the way, she grabbed his hand and squeezed it. She could tell Izuku was still in slight shock, and her heart turned slightly at it. Here, Izu, let's get going so we can meet up with Mr. Yagi, alright? If you want to talk on the way, we can, but it's up to you, she told him. He nodded slowly but looked away. She was about to let go of his hand, but she felt him grasp it tighter. Then he was openly hugging her arm and putting his head against her shoulder. Ochako didn't protest, and actually welcomed the physical contact. Despite Izuku being slightly taller, she felt it wasn't awkward at all. Some time passed as they walked in silence, with the both of them deep in thought. After another small while with them about two-thirds of the way there, Izuku lifted his head up, moved his hand to her own rather than her arm, and interrupted the silence. Thank you, Ochako. Ochako tilted her head to the side as she looked over to the boy in surprise. She smiled, seeing him blush cutely as he normally does. It's no problem, Izu. I'm sorry that I wasn't there when he was, but I'll always do my best to be there when you need me. She moved in to kiss his cheek and smiled as he grimaced. Why you don't have? But I want to, she interrupted him. Izuku looked at her momentarily as she kept her eyes ahead, and he blinked a couple times. She would always surprise him, it seemed. He basked in the warmth her words gave his heart, and he squeezed her hand tighter. He swore that someday he'd repay her for all this kindness he felt he didn't deserve. A couple more moments passed by in silence, and Izuku figured that making some small talk might relax things a bit more. So did you hear the new song? Izuku asked quietly. Ochako looked at him surprised. They released it already. Izuku nodded, but as he watched Ochako pull out her phone and earbuds, he giggled softly. He accepted the earbud Ochako gave him, and they proceeded to listen to the song together as they walked. Eventually, they reached the beach, though Izuku could tell Ochako was a little bit more disgusted with the area they were in just as he was before. Though, Izuku did feel there was somehow even more trash here than before. The once towering figure Izuku remembered to be here was no more. Instead, it was replaced by the very same, yet very different person, Toshinori Yagi. The frail man waved in the distance, and Izuku felt himself waving back, as did Ochako. The couple walked to where the man stood. Ochako took in the sight. That man must be Mr. Yagi, but she immediately wondered what exactly was going to happen. This place seemed to be a dump, which made her sad as she looked to her left and saw the clean patch that she and Izuku gazed at the stars together on. To think something so close to that pure moment could be so filthy. As the two walked over, Toshinori couldn't help but notice the fact that they were holding hands. How curious, he'd question Izuku later regarding that. There's my protege. And his friend, you must be Ochako. He then began to violently cough up blood into a napkin, and just as quickly he offered his hand for Ochako to shake. I'm Toshinori Yagi, it's nice to meet you. Ochako let go of Izuku's hand, and extended her other to shake Toshinori's hand. Though she noticed the coughing fit, she did her best to ignore it as that was what Izuku apparently did. Yes, I'm Ochako Uraraka. It's nice to meet you too. How polite. I see young Midoriya knows how to choose his friends. Ochako inwardly frowned at that, thinking back to Katsuki, but perhaps Mr. Yagi wasn't aware. She focused her thoughts. That was meant as a compliment after all. She glanced over to Izuku with a knowing smile, and grabbed at his hand with her own. Izuku immediately picked up on what she was trying to convey. Well actually T Toshinori, Ochako is actually my G girlfriend. Toshinori's eyes widened slightly before he laughed genuinely. Well, that didn't take long. Izuku groaned slightly, while Ochako was very curious. I apologize, young Uraraka, it's just, you see, young Midoriya here had told me you were just friends last time we spoke. It's okay, we only began officially dating last weekend, actually. She giggled softly, letting go of Izuku's hand. But thank you for having me here today, sir. Toshinori smiled at the display of respect. She wanted to impress, clearly. Not a bad start. Please, Toshinori is fine. Toshinori looked over to Izuku. As me and Ochako catch up, Izuku, I want you to begin on the strength exercises we went over yesterday using that car over there. He finished by pointing to said destroyed vehicle that laid in the sand in front of them. Why yes Toshinori, the hero to be immediately replied and jogged over to said wrecked car. Good luck Ochako, he said as he waved. Ochako giggled at Izuku's enthusiasm as she waved back. It was clear he respected this man a lot. Toshinori scratched his head as he and his new student watched Izuku run off. I'm surprised, that's the first time he didn't call me Mr. Yagi. Ochako giggled again, before standing at attention as the ex-hero turned to face her. Anyways, so I hear you and Izuku are trying to become heroes, then. He asked her as he placed his hand on his hip. Ochako beamed, immediately nodding. Good. Such youthful spirit. Well then, young Uraraka, let's discuss business. Young Midoriya has told me a lot about you, but I wanted to ask you about some specifics. Ochako then explained that they were both training specifically for the UA entrance exam, as they both wanted to become heroes. Tell me, why do you want to be a hero? The frail old man asked her. Ochako glanced down at the sand in quiet contemplation, pondering the question for several seconds as she fidgeted with her necklace. Looking back up at her new trainer, she responded, I want to protect the defenseless, punish the evil, and to help support my parents financially. A loaded answer, but it encompassed what she felt was the entirety of her drive to be a hero. Noble aspirations for one so young. Yes, we can indeed work with this. She smiled awkwardly. All right then. I'm impressed. Toshinori then pulled out a small, stapled stack of paper. This shall be your individualized plan for success. He handed the curious girl the stack of papers. Within shall be your meal and calorie guidelines, as well as your exercise and quirk training plans. Ochako looked it over and went on to the next page. You may have heard that young Midoriya has one as well, though yours is very similar. It differs in that his has different dietary requirements as well as a couple of specific exercises. Ochako shifted her gaze up at her new teacher curiously. This is because I believe that young Midoriya contains a very special kind of power, locked deep within him. A quirk that wasn't identified, if you will. His plan was created with the intent to pull out this hidden power in time for the UA exams. Ochako looked up at him in surprise. You think Izuku has a hidden quirk? She exclaimed loudly. Izuku lifted the heavy car door above his head for the 37th time, panting loudly. He glanced over to his girlfriend and mentor as they spoke, doing his best not to collapse under the weight of the door. Toshinori nodded his head whilst grinning. Yes, and I've discussed this with him. I'm not entirely sure, as the nature of it is quite unusual, but regardless of whether or not he has a quirk, I am more than sure he has what it takes to become a hero. Ochako watched Izuku perform his exercises with fascination. What kind of quirk would it be? She asked. Power enhancement, Toshinori answered smoothly. If it's there, that is this training he's undergoing is designed specifically to help unlock that power if it exists. I see. That's incredible. She responded. She thought in silence for a brief moment. Does Izuku know? Yes, but I asked him that I be the one that explained the situation, if you were curious. Curious. Huh, I see. A little weird, but okay. But yes, as you see with your plan for success, I have decided to focus more heavily on training your quirk zero gravity, as I see it having lots of potential. She listened intently. He continued. We'll begin by testing out the limits of your quirk as it is. He began walking toward a giant shipping container. Do you know how heavy exactly your current limit is? She scratched her head awkwardly. No, actually. He laughed, before coughing up more blood to Ochako's surprise. Wiping his chin with a handkerchief, Ochako looked over at him, concerned. Don't worry, I'm okay. That is just the residual effect of a battle I had before I retired. Ochako nodded, seeing Toshinori apparently ready to continue his explanation. As you see on the second page of your plan for success, I've made a section for you to write down your starting weight as well as your progress. Now I figure that shipping container as it is probably weighs around 2 tons, which is roughly where untrained individuals with a quirk similar to yours are capable of interacting with. See if you can lift it up with your quirk. Ochako nodded and handed her papers to Toshinori. Doing a brief stretch before walking over to the container, she touched it with the pads of her fingers. She focused intently, bile rising within her. She was being pushed to her limits, but she felt she could do this. After a moment, the shipping container began to float in the air, but Ochako was trembling. Toshinori was apparently correct, this was about her limit. About 10 seconds passed, and the shipping container remained afloat about a foot in the air. Toshinori was impressed. He expected her to just barely not be able to lift it yet. It seems she could do slightly more if pushed. For now though, this was perfect for training. You can release it now, Toshinori said. Ochako's legs trembled, and she was out of breath after only 15 seconds. She touched her hands together and cancelled her quirk, dropping the shipping container comfortably into the sand.